it's Miss Erin, and I hope you all are having a fantastic Easter morning. And I hope that even though with all the hard times right now and just like the weirdness of it all, that you're still able to celebrate Easter with your family this morning. Even if you have to FaceTime them, or like what my family and I are doing, are literally my mom is delivering food to my siblings this morning, and we're all going to FaceTime or Zoom together. Actually, it's another app you can use, and we are going to be eating Easter dinner together, quote unquote. So do what you can to make this Easter one to remember. And yeah, but I hope you guys all got your Easter baskets and listened to the church service already. You can either watch this one first or the church service. It's up to you. No particular order here. But today is going to be a fun one because I have a couple of things to show you guys. And I'm going to do the reading a little bit differently today. And we're not going to base it off the lesson that we usually do in our lesson plan. This kind of lesson is one that I've kind of made up on my own. And I have introduced this other thing, which is the resurrection eggs, in past children's sermons on Easter the last couple of years. So I thought I would bring them back and do it in video form to show all of you more in, you'll just see my hands, but in the eggs obviously. But we'll go through them one at a time and look at all the eggs. But before we do that, I am going to be reading this. And it's the story of the first Easter. And this book is actually really, really close to my heart because I actually got this from my Auntie Heidi. Shout out to you. This is from my Auntie Heidi, and she got it for me when I was baptized. And I was actually baptized on Easter, back when I was a little baby. So Easter has always been kind of like it's almost like my New Year kind of celebration kind of a thing, being, you know, brought into the church on Easter, and very, very special day. So I got this from my aunt. Obviously, I didn't really remember receiving it, but my nieces now love to read it, especially during the last week while my mom and I were babysitting. And yeah, so I want to actually put you guys up close to the pictures so you guys can see them easier. So I'm not going to read it like this. It'll just be right in front of me for all of you to see, and then we shall do the resurrection eggs. So I hope you guys are all excited. As usual, I will have resources and printouts and activities to do this week on like a Easter theme. So links will be down in the description box for printouts and just online activities if you can't print anything out. And all that, and just like crafts to make at home that you can do today on Easter, or you can do during the week, because why not celebrate it all week? So I hope you guys are having an awesome Easter, and let's get into the story and the eggs. The story of the first Easter. There's actually a note in here. Jesus had been staying in Bethany, where his friends Martha, Mary, and Lazarus lived, but he knew that the time had come for him to go to Jerusalem. The people in Jerusalem wanted him to be their king, but Jesus knew that his Father in heaven had something even more important for him to do. As Jesus approached Jerusalem, many people went out to meet him, waving palm branches. The people knew who he was, and they were very excited to see him. "Hosanna to the Son of David," they shouted. "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." Several days later was Passover. This was the celebration of the holy day, when God delivered the children of Israel from the Egyptians. Jesus and his 12 disciples got together at a friend's house in Jerusalem for a special Passover supper. As they were eating, Jesus took some bread. He blessed it and broke it. He passed it out to his disciples, and he said, "Take this and eat it. This is my body." Then he took his cup and gave thanks, and said, "All of you drink from it. This is my blood of the covenant, poured out for the forgiveness of sins." Everybody was happy that they could be together for this special supper, but Jesus seemed sad. He looked around the table at his disciples and said, "One of you will turn me over to our enemies." 11 of his disciples couldn't believe their ears, but Judas knew what Jesus was talking about. This is Judas, by the way. After supper, Jesus took his disciples to the Mount of Olives. Then Peter, James, and John went with Jesus to a grove of olive trees called the Garden of Gethsemane. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Jesus often went to this place with his disciples to pray and rest. Jesus went among the trees and knelt down to pray. He asked God the Father to help him face what he knew was going to happen soon. When Jesus came back to the 3 disciples, he found them sleeping and asked them to pray with him. But they fell asleep again. He went and prayed 2 more times. When the disciples awoke, they heard the noise of a crowd and saw the flashing of torches. The crowd was armed with swords, clubs, and spears. Judas rushed out from the crowd and greeted Jesus with a kiss, as though he was glad to see him. The crowd knew Judas would kiss Jesus to betray him. They grabbed Jesus and arrested him. One of the disciples near Jesus drew his sword and cut off the ear of the slave of the high priest. But Jesus said, "No more of this," and healed the slave's ear. When Jesus' disciples saw that he would not allow them to fight, they ran away. The crowd took Jesus to Caiaphas, sorry if I mispronounced that, the high priest. After a mock trial before Caiaphas, the crowd took Jesus to the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, who ruled over Judea. He listened to their complaints about Jesus and offered either to set a criminal named Barabbas free or to set Jesus free. The crowd wanted Barabbas set free, instead of telling them to let Jesus go. Pilate washed his hands, let Barabbas go, and let them have Jesus. The crowd cried, "Crucify him!" So the Roman soldiers took Jesus out of the city to the place called Calvary, or Golgotha. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced these. Which means the place of the skull. They had a huge cross to crucify Jesus on. A great crowd of people followed Jesus and the soldiers. Some were enemies of Jesus, glad to see him suffer. They did many wicked and painful things to hurt Jesus. Others were friends of Jesus. Some women followed Jesus and cried. Jesus turned to them and said, "Do not cry for me." The soldiers tried to make Jesus carry his own cross, but soon found he was too weak from his suffering and could not carry it. They chose a man named Simon who was passing by, and they made him carry the cross to its place at Calvary. When they came to Calvary, the soldiers laid the cross down and stretched Jesus out on it. They drove nails into his hands and feet to fasten him to the cross. Then they stood the cross upright with Jesus upon it. When the soldiers were doing this dreadful work, Jesus prayed to God for them. He prayed, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Two men who had been robbers and had been sentenced to die were led out to be crucified at the same time with Jesus. One was placed on a cross at his right and the other at his left. Pilate ordered a sign hung over Jesus' head which read, "This is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." The people in the crowd looked at Jesus on the cross and mocked him. The priests and scribes said, "He saved others, but he cannot save himself. If you can come down from the cross, we will believe in you." Even one of the robbers mocked Jesus, but the second robber scolded him. Don't you fear God to talk like that?" he asked. "You are going to die the same way. We deserve to die. But this man has done nothing wrong." Then this man said to Jesus, "Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "Today you will be with me in heaven." Jesus saw his mother, Mary, and his friend Mary Magdalene standing near the cross. They were filled with sorrow for him. Also standing nearby was his disciple John. Jesus asked John to take care of his mother. Then a sudden darkness came over the land. Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? It is finished. Father, into your hands I give my spirit." At that moment there was a loud clap of thunder, and the earth shook like an earthquake. The Roman officer who had charge of the soldiers around the cross saw what had taken place and how Jesus died. He was afraid and said, "Surely this was the Son of God." That evening, Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy man who believed in Jesus, went to Pontius Pilate. He asked Pilate for permission to bury the body of Jesus. Joseph then took down his body from the cross and wrapped it in fine linen. Nicodemus, another man who believed in Jesus, brought precious spices, which they wrapped up with the body. Then they placed the body in a tomb, which is a cave dug out of a rock. They covered the opening of the tomb with a large stone. The following morning, some of the people who had helped to crucify Jesus came to Pilate. They reminded him that Jesus had said, "After 3 days I will rise again." Pilate gave orders that the tomb will be watched for 3 days to make sure that no one tried to take the body away. Early on the first day of the week, there was a great earthquake. An angel of the Lord came from heaven and rolled back the stone and sat on it. Mary Magdalene and some of the others came to the tomb, found the stone and rolled away and saw the angel. The angel told them not to be afraid. Jesus was not there, he said. He had risen. Afterward, Jesus appeared to his disciples and stayed with them for 40 days. Then he was taken up into heaven. Today, when we celebrate Easter, we remember the day that Jesus rose from the dead. So I apologize for all the rips in this book, but if you have your own book at home, I would highly recommend reading it. But let's get into the resurrection eggs now. Here are the eggs, and today I'm going to be reading through. There's a little booklet right here that comes with it, and I'm going to read through, and when it says to open up an egg, I'm going to open up an egg in front of you, and then we'll move on. Because I'm not going to read the story part of it, I'm just going to read the kind of like intro of it, so, because I feel like we already kind of know all the stories now because of that book. So let's go through all of them together and look at the eggs. Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. This is based off of Matthew chapter 21, verses 2 to 3 and 6 to 8. I shall now open the blue egg first. So let's see what's inside. Look at this! I'll put the eggs back here. We have the donkey that Jesus rode on into Jerusalem. So I'll put him right over here. Then one of the 12, whose name was Judas, went to the chief priests and said, "What will you give me if I deliver him over to you?" And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he sought an opportunity to betray him. That was based off of Matthew chapter 26, verses 14 to 16. Let's see. Next is the light pink egg. Ooh, what could be inside? Some silver coins. We got 3 of them here. Put them right there. Alright. And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, "Drink all of it, all of you, for this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." That was based off of Matthew chapter 26, verses 27 to 28. And next, I shall open the light purple egg. Let's see what's in here. It's the cup that Jesus drank from at the Last Supper. Put that right over here. And I'll put the purple egg back. And they went to a place called Gethsemane. And when he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray," and he took with him Peter and James and John and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch." This is from Mark chapter 14, verses 32 to 34. What's inside the orange egg? What could be in there? The praying hands. They're actually like 2 hands that are praying. Let's put them right next to the cup here. Put the orange egg back. Then Pilate took Jesus and flogged him. And that was based off of John chapter 19, verses 1. And let's open up this green egg. We have the whip here that Pilate used on Jesus. Right there, and I'll put the egg right here. But Peter began to invoke a curse on him and to swear, "I do not know this man of whom you speak." And immediately the rooster crowed a second time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. This is based off of Mark chapter 14, verses 71 to 72. Now let's open up the yellow egg. We have the little rooster! Look how cute he is. take it out with his donkey friend. Oops. Try to balance him. There we go. Now put the egg back. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him, and they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand. And kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" This is based off of Matthew chapter 27, verses 27 to 29. And now we'll open this egg, the light orange egg. Wonder what could be in here. It's the crown of thorns that Jesus had to wear. Put it next to the rooster. Put the egg back. So they took Jesus, and he went out bearing his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. Sorry for mispronouncing. They crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on either side, and Jesus between them. This is based off of John chapter 19, verses 16 to 18. And now we'll open up the light green egg here. What could be in here? It's the nails in the cross, in the shape of a cross. Back. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced the side with a spear, and at once there came out blood and water. This is based off of John 19, verses 32 to 34, and we shall open the purple egg. It's the spear that they used. Quite a small spear here. Put that right here. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea, named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to not be given to him, or to be given to him. And Jesus took the body and wrapped him in a clean linen shroud, and laid it on his new tomb, which he had cut in the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance of the tomb and went away. And that was based off of Matthew chapter 27, verses 57 to 60. And we'll open up this light blue egg. I can hear slightly what's in there, but it sounds like nothing's in there. It's the linen cloth. Put that over. It's like a little blanket for them. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven, and came and rolled back the stone, and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. That was based off of Matthew chapter 28, verses 2 to 4. And let's see what's inside the pink egg. Ooh, that's pretty loud. Oh, it's a stone, just like the stone that was in front of the tomb. Awesome. Put that right there. But the angel said to the woman, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has risen, And he said, as he said, "Come see the new place where he lay." And that is based off of Matthew chapter 28, verses 5 to 6. And let's see what's on inside the white egg. Oh. Doesn't sound like anything. It's empty. And it's empty because it's just like how the tomb was empty when Jesus had risen. Were you surprised that it was empty? Were you thinking that something else was going to be in it? It's actually quite ironic because in our service today, the beginning video talks about that. So I'd highly recommend watching that because it's a very, very good story to start off the service. And yeah, so we're going to do a little game here, just a quick little game, and place them back in order. So do you guys remember, actually, we'll start from the beginning. Do you guys remember which object goes in the blue egg? Is it the praying hands? No, it's the donkey. The donkey goes in the first egg. When he rode into Jerusalem and all the palm branches were waving. Do it like that. What was the second item in the stories? Yeah, the silver coins. And the silver coins were used when Judas talked to Pilate. Put that in there. And then we have, what was in the light purple egg? Ah, yes, it was the cup. The cup that Jesus drank from during the Last Supper. Now, what was in the orange egg? Yeah, the praying hands. When he prayed in the garden during this story, when his disciples were asleep. They should have been awake. But the story would have been different if they were awake, so. And then the first light green egg, what was in that? Correct, that was the whip that Pilate used on Jesus. Very, very mean thing to do. What was in the yellow egg? You remember? I'll give you a hint. It's the other animal that we saw. Yeah, the rooster. With the story of Peter, and that it would, the rooster would cry 3 times. Put that in there. We're halfway there. How about, we'll spread these out a little bit. What was in the orange egg? What was next in the lineup? Yeah, the crown of thorns that Jesus had to wear when he was going onto the cross and he was arrested. What about the other light green egg? What was in that one? Yeah, the nails on the cross. The nails that turned into a cross here. When Jesus was nailed to the cross after he had the crown of thorns put on. And he had to carry the cross himself. What was in the purple egg? Yeah, the spear. When he died, the soldiers were checking if he was dead and hurt him with this. It's not very nice. Jesus went through a lot. What was in the light blue egg? You guys remember? Yeah, the cloth. The cloth was there. And Joseph put that around Jesus' body and even on the tomb itself. Kind of hard to put that in there. All the strings. There we go. And whoop. And what was in the pink egg? Yeah, the stone. Stone that was in front of the tomb. Now, what was in the white egg? Nothing. It was empty, because when Jesus rose from the dead, the tomb was empty. And that was the greatest gift of all. I hope you guys enjoyed this little activity here. I hope to see you all real soon, but in the meantime, we will still have these lessons every single Sunday. And also we'll have the online church services, so make sure to check those out. Click down below, click on our channel here, and check out all the other services or lessons that you missed if you missed any. But yeah, I will probably see you all next week on this, and I hope you guys have a great Easter morning. Bye everyone!